people of African descent have been involved in classical music since the beginning.
This is not about diversity. This music belongs to us. This music belongs to everyone.
Open your ears to hear and understand something that you perhaps don't understand, which is that excellence comes in all people.
Going from 2 to see if this works now with the cellos divided.
The mission of Gateways Music Festival is to connect and support professional classical musicians of African descent and enrich and enlighten communities through the power of performance. Gateways is growing exponentially. We have 125 musicians now. When I first started with Gateways, maybe the full orchestra was 65, so it's doubled.
I've been involved with Gateways since it came to Rochester in 1995. There is a passion for this festival. It's palpable. There is an added ingredient that is the product of shared life experiences that the musicians largely don't get anyplace else.
And the un poco più mosso, that's Italian for hurtling through space.
The thing that's most striking about the Gateways Music Festival is when you see a complete stage, a complete symphony orchestra that is entirely African American, because you just never do. And then of course to hear it, the level of players is tremendous.
There's so many discussions in the field about how few African Americans there are and the dearth of players and talent that supposedly exists. And when you concentrate that on one stage as large as Eastman Theater, it demonstrates quite the contrary.
When the Gateways Festival Orchestra walks out on stage, a new line of inquiry or a new conversation is opened with the audience before we've even played a note. Because the backdrop of classical music is that this is a white art form.
Eastman School of Music has been a supporter of Gateways Music Festival since the very beginning, but kind of behind the scenes. We really needed more support because the festival is growing so quickly. And so the University of Rochester and Eastman School of Music have become partners with Gateways so that we can grow this festival because it's important.
Classical music has not traditionally reflected the population of our country as a whole. I want Eastman to be part of anything that celebrates great music and great music making. And the fact to celebrate this particular area of African American ancestry, I think is just fantastic for Eastman.
We might be few in numbers where we are, but when I come to Gateways, I'm one of many.
There's something so incredibly profound and powerful of seeing other people that look like you know, and do what you do at the level that you do it.
You could just feel the love in the room, looking around, people's smiling faces, you know. It's uplifting. I wish I could bottle this up and take it home with me, you know. It's energizing, it's family, it's love, it's heart, it's soul, it's music.
I personally struggle, and always have, with a sense of hopelessness about race in America. When I see that stage, think, you know, just maybe, it feels really good to see people on that stage, and it eases my sense of hopelessness.
Wow, I'm emotional behind that.
It's a lot.
I'm very moved. I'm moved to see the Eastman Theater. I'm moved by the comments. I'm moved at the visual of all the musicians on the stage. You know, oddly enough, Lee, I told my mentor recently, his name's Patrick Jackson, Patrice Jackson's father.
Sure. Yeah.
Started me on double bass, helped me to get into the Eastman School of Music. And I told him sometime last year, I thanked him for what he did. Specifically, I feel like I'm part of a special fraternity of being an African-American classical musician. And I thanked him for inviting me into that. I would also like to thank you for taking the time to sit and talk with our audience today. And thank you for your sacrifices. We have no clue the things you've gone through over the years. So thank you for keeping on, my brother.
Thanks. And same to you. You run an organization, so you know what goes on behind the scenes to make it all happen. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. So who is Lee Koonce? Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Oh my gosh. I wasn't prepared for that. I was just going to talk about gateways. You know our founder, Arminta Hummings, now Arminta Hummings Dumasani. And one of the special things about Gateways is that it was never about her. She is, one of the world's great pianists. And she rarely played at Gateways. My teacher at Eastman was Nalita Shrew when I was a student at Eastman. And she was in class at Juilliard with Arminta. And Nalita said, Arminta, everybody wanted to play like Arminta. That's the level of pianist that she is. And so I think I have carried on in her tradition, and Gateways is not about me. Gateways is so much bigger than me. It is about what you just said. It's about this community of Black classical musicians, and our shared experience being that. So I rarely talk about myself because it's not about me, it's about Gateways. I am a pianist from Chicago, south side of Chicago, and I attended the Oberlin Conservatory of Music for piano performance, and then I went to Eastman School of Music for piano performance and literature, and have spent many years as a professional pianist playing in Chicago mostly. And then I kind of went into the world of community arts education and became the director of community relations for the Chicago Symphony, which led me into the world of community music schools. So I came to New York to run the oldest and one of the largest community music schools in the country. And I have been in this role at Gateways kind of full-time since 2016, when we affiliated with Eastman and the University of Rochester. But I started the job really in 2009 when Arminta retired. Okay. I chaired the committee that she put together of mostly at that time Eastman grads to become the artistic voice of the festival. And that committee continues. It has grown. There are probably 22 members, and that really is the artistic leadership, along with Michael Morgan, of the festival.
Wow, that's wonderful. So before we get into strictly Gateways, with that stellar resume, why make the switch to Gateways Music Festival? Why take that on?
Yeah. When I was at the Chicago Symphony, we brought a group of Gateways musicians to Chicago to perform as a part of a Chicago Symphony residency. And I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks. And Arminta came, and like 5 or 6 players came, chamber music group. And, they played all over Chicago. And they had this big finale concert at the DeSable Museum in the auditorium there, standing room only. And after the concert was over, they were standing on the stage, and so many people came up and said, I've never seen a Black person play the cello.
Wow.
Or how can my kid learn how to play like that, right? That thing over there, I want how Black families. And I thought, there's something really important and profound about what Gateways is and what it can do and what its potential is. And when I was ready to make a change in my life and in my career, I told Paul Burgett, who was probably the dean when you were at Eastman. Was Paul the dean? Yep. He was the dean of students when I was at Eastman. That, I'm thinking that it's time to move on. And, what I'd really like to do is to do Gateways full time. And Paul made it happen.
Wow.
But I made the change because what we do is so incredibly important. As I said to you earlier, the festival, we bring about 125 musicians, but we turned away almost 200 musicians last year. And that's a point of sadness for us because we realize how desperately Black musicians need the Gateways experience. They need to be in community with folks who look like them, who've gone through the same experiences as them, and play the music at a high level like them. So it is life-saving for Black musicians. Gateways saves people's lives.
What that information you just shared also communicated to me is that we're out there.
That's right.
If you're turning away 200, we're out there.
That's exactly right.
So let's talk a little bit about the pandemic. I don't really want to date our
right.
podcast here. I want to live forever, but it's very pivotal. And what's been going on with the organization during the pandemic and moving forward?
Yeah. I think the pandemic has changed life as we know it forever. I think that, the fact that we're having this conversation via Zoom. I started at Eastman in this job and I was commuting back and forth. And in the dean's conference room, there was no TV, there was no monitor. And I kept pushing for that. And I kept pushing my assistant or our office manager to start running our meetings so that we could do Zoom. And she's like, Zoom, what's Zoom? Right?
Okay.
But this was before the pandemic. Now Zoom is a household word.
It's a standard.
It's a standard. And I think that, when people say, let's Google something, Zoom will become a verb.
Like Xerox, not a photocopy.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. But it's changed the world as we know it. And I think, so for musical institutions, for Gateways, I'll just speak to Gateways, we had our first virtual festival in November. And we got some of the highest ratings on some of the things we did. Like we did a panel, a pre-concert conversation before every event. We had 2 panels and 2 speeches, but people could log in from anywhere. We have people from Texas, people from South Africa, people from New York, everywhere. People were logging into these things. And so I think that the pandemic, while tragic, when over 500,000 people lose their lives, that is tragic. There are things that I think have been beneficial because of the, just being separated in this way. And I'll close by saying our musicians meet once every month or so, and of our 20 leadership musicians, and more than half of them came down with the virus.
Dear. Wow.
And I kind of learned about it sporadically. But, they kind of no communication with them for weeks on end. Mm-hmm. And then I think, well, I don't wonder what's going on. And then they come back and they say, well, I was dealing with this virus. And so of our 20, I would say 11 or 12 of them have had the virus at some point.
Wow.
That's horrible. And, you're a string player, so you can at least play. But if you're a wind player,
it's impossible at this point.
Impossible. And it could actually affect your body for many, many years to come.
So I have a question for you. Don't get as upset with me when I put this out on the table. With those with that stunning data from the virtual experience, do you see possibly Gateways expanding in the near future to having 2 events per year, one virtual and the virtual leading up to the in-person?
I think that's a terrific idea. I think that we are going to change, and I think what will happen is, one, Gateways will eventually become a year-round thing. So 12 months out of the year. We already have a brass collective that tours. We want a string group that tours. Because the importance of seeing Black classical musicians cannot be overestimated. You can hear it, but you got to see.
Amen.
You got to see them. So the only way to do that is to get out there. So what I think is going to happen for Gateways and most organizations is that it's going to be both. You're going to have live and the opportunity to do the kind of remote virtual thing. It's going to be both and. I think that's the way on out, from here on out.
I don't want to call Gateways a well-kept secret because it's not a secret. There's always a push for the exposure so people can understand what's happening and what has been happening. Will you please speak to that as far as what occurs over the 5 or 6 days once a year at an actual festival?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I agree with you. We are a well-kept secret in many ways. And it's not by accident. We were talking about our founder. Gateways was never about her. It was always about the music and the musicians. She could care less about marketing and communications. For her, and you know her, so you know what I'm talking about.
Very direct.
Very direct.
Words.
That's right. Didn't mince words. And, it was about the music and the musicians. And there are other organizations and other festivals that I have high regard for, but they are masterful promoters. Right? And Arminta was never about that. And so I think we've suffered in some ways because we didn't have that kind of written into our DNA. But amongst the world of Black musicians, Gateways is becoming more and more known. I mean, if you're having to turn away 200 musicians, the word is out that this is something to belong to. And our next festival will be in New York City, and it's kind of our coming out party. We are here. And after that, it is likely that our future will be on the road. So, 1 year we might be in St. Louis, right? Bring the entire 6-7 days to St. Louis, or Washington, D.C., or Atlanta, or L.A. We'll retain our home in Rochester because Rochester has been good to Gateways. Gateways would not exist today, I guarantee you, without the support, especially of the Black community in Rochester. So, but we want to bring them with us, right?
Yes.
So when we go to New York City in 2022, we're organizing a tour for our family, our entire family, to come with us and be a part of that.
Wow, that's amazing. Tell us, are you able to speak a little bit more about that opportunity that's coming up in New York City?
Yeah. I can't say a lot about it yet because the venue has to make their official announcement first. But it is, as I said, Gateway's coming out party in many, many ways on the world's, I would say, most famous stage. And for this small little organization founded by a Black woman in the basement of a church in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, but one day, in just about a year, to be on this major stage is quite a testament to Arminta and to this way we have in the Black community of making a way out of no way. And that is what Gateways has been. We've made a way out of no way. And we have a lot to be grateful for, a lot to be thankful for.
Absolutely. So for those who are going to watch the broadcast, what is the best way for someone to get involved? I know financial contributions are always one way to really support the cause, but what about that marketing student who's just graduated from the HBCU to say, hey, well, I don't have a lot of time, but I would be committed to helping with social media. How can someone get involved?
You're giving my speech right now. Certainly donations are always needed and always welcome. We could always use the support. We've always operated on the shoestring. But there are many ways to get involved. And I think that marketing and communication is one of the most important ways. Our social media presence is hugely important. Managing the website, hugely important, which needs a complete redesign right now. And as we move toward this big opportunity in New York City, the media and the communications and the PR around that will be significant. And so I think you just hit the nail on the head. That is probably one of our greatest needs right now.
Absolutely. I just want to thank you again for taking a few moments out of your busy schedule to chat with us. Do you have any final thoughts before we log off?
No, I would love to know more about, at some point soon, your Gateways outreach program. The fact that we share a name almost is really extraordinary. And
an alma mater.
And an alma mater, exactly. I would love to find a way for us to connect with you and your program.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.